The courtroom was quiet, but the silence felt heavy. People filled the seats, whispering softly to each other. Some came for legal business. Others stayed because something about this case felt emotional. At the center of the room sat Danielle, a black woman in her late 30s. She sat straight, hands folded in her lap, her face calm but tired. Across from her sat her husband, Marcus. Marcus looked relaxed, too relaxed. He leaned back in his chair, wearing an expensive suit, his confidence clear to everyone watching. Beside him sat a younger woman, Lena. She held his arm like she already belonged there. She smiled often, sometimes whispering in his ear, as if the courtroom was just another casual place. Many people in the room assumed they understood the story already. A successful man leaves his wife for someone younger. A sad ending. Nothing new, but they were wrong. The judge entered, and the room stood up. Papers moved. Chairs scraped softly against the floor. When everyone sat again, the tension returned. Marcus did not look at Danielle. Instead, he pushed a folder across the table toward her. Divorce papers. His voice was cold when he spoke. Let's finish this today. Danielle looked at the papers for a long moment. Her eyes moved slowly across the page. No anger. No shouting. No tears. That surprised people. Lena smiled slightly, as if she expected drama and was disappointed not to see it. She leaned closer to Marcus, whispering something that made him laugh quietly. The sound echoed louder than it should have. The judge noticed. Danielle picked up the pen. Her hand paused for just a second. For a moment, it looked like memories were passing through her mind. Years of marriage, late nights, struggles, and promises that once meant everything. Then she signed. Just like that. Some people in the courtroom exchanged looks. It felt too easy, too quiet for something so painful. Marcus nodded, satisfied. He did not thank her. He did not even look at her. To him, it was finished business. But Danielle remained calm. She placed the pen down gently and folded her hands again. The judge studied both of them carefully. Something about Danielle's silence felt different. Not weak, not defeated, just finished. As the lawyer spoke, small details began to stand out. Marcus checked his phone more than once. Lena smiled at messages, clearly bored by the process. Their behavior felt careless, almost disrespectful. Meanwhile, Danielle listened to every word. Flashbacks filled the narrator's voice. Years ago, Marcus had nothing. His business was only an idea. Bills were unpaid. Friends stopped answering his calls. Danielle worked 2 jobs at that time. She believed in him when nobody else did. She used her savings to help him start. She stayed awake, helping with paperwork. She encouraged him when deals failed. She stood beside him when success seemed impossible. But success changed Marcus. Money brought new friends, new parties, and new excuses. Late meetings became normal. Phone calls were hidden. Slowly, Danielle became invisible in her own marriage. Back in the courtroom, the lawyer finished speaking. Marcus looked confident, already imagining his new life. Lena squeezed his hand, smiling proudly. Danielle finally stood up when asked. She gathered her bag quietly. No scene, no event, just dignity. As she walked toward the exit, the judge looked down again at the documents in front of him. His eyes narrowed slightly. He flipped through several pages again. Numbers, dates, ownership records. Something did not make sense. He looked up at Marcus, then at Danielle walking away. Mrs. Danielle, the judge said calmly, please wait outside for a moment. The room grew silent again. Marcus frowned, confused. Is there a problem, Your Honor? The judge closed the file slowly. Yes, he said. I believe there might be. Marcus's confident smile faded just a little. And for the first time that day, the courtroom felt like the story was only beginning. The courtroom remained quiet after the judge called for a short recess. Marcus sat back in his chair, annoyed. He did not understand why things were slowing down. To him, the divorce was simple. Papers were signed. The marriage was over. He glanced at Lena, who rolled her eyes slightly, clearly bored. This will be over soon, Marcus whispered to her. But across the hall, Danielle sat alone on a wooden bench. Her hands rested calmly in her lap, but her mind traveled far into the past, to a time when everything was different. Years earlier, Marcus was not the confident man people saw today. He was struggling, tired, and desperate to succeed. His business idea sounded risky, and no one wanted to invest. Banks rejected him. Friends told him to give up and find a stable job. Only Danielle believed in him. She worked long hours at her job, sometimes coming home late at night, still helping Marcus with business plans and emails. When money ran out, she used her personal savings to keep the business alive. She told him again and again, "One day this will work. Just don't quit." And Marcus didn't quit. Slowly, the business started growing. Small contracts turned into bigger ones. The stress disappeared, replaced by success. New offices, new clients, new money. But success brought change. Marcus started traveling more. He met new people who admired his success but did not know his past. In those rooms, Danielle's name was rarely mentioned. Marcus began telling the story as if he built everything alone. Danielle noticed the change, but she stayed quiet. She believed marriage meant standing together, even during difficult moments. Then Lena entered his life. She was young, confident, and impressed by Marcus's success. She saw the finished version of him, not the struggling man Danielle once supported. With Lena, Marcus felt admired again. Important, untouchable. At first, it was only business meetings, then late dinners, then secrets. Back in the present, the courtroom session resumed. The judge adjusted his glasses and looked at the documents again. His voice remained calm, but his questions became sharper. "Mr. Marcus," he said, "can you explain the original funding of your company?" Marcus answered quickly, "Personal investment, Your Honor." The judge nodded slowly, but did not write anything down. Instead, he flipped to another page. "And these early ownership records?" he asked. Marcus hesitated for a second. "Old paperwork. It was updated later." Danielle remained silent, watching. The judge's eyes moved between them. Something about Marcus's answers felt incomplete. Lena leaned closer to Marcus and whispered, "Why is he asking all this? It's just a divorce." Marcus forced a smile, but a small line of worry appeared on his forehead. The judge then looked toward Danielle. "Mrs. Danielle," he said gently, "were you involved in the early stages of the company?" Danielle took a slow breath before speaking. Her voice was calm, without anger. "Yes, Your Honor. From the beginning." The courtroom grew still. She explained simply how she helped organize accounts, handle clients, and used her savings when the company had no income. She did not exaggerate. She did not accuse. She only spoke facts. And, somehow, that made her words stronger. Marcus shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The judge continued reviewing the documents. Old bank transfers, early contracts, signatures that told a different story than the one Marcus had presented. The atmosphere changed. What once looked like a simple divorce now felt complicated. For the first time, Lena stopped smiling. Marcus leaned toward his lawyer, whispering urgently. The confidence he carried earlier began to crack. He realized the past he tried to forget was now returning, piece by piece. The judge finally closed the folder. "I will require full financial disclosure before proceeding further," he announced. A quiet murmur spread across the courtroom. Danielle lowered her eyes, not in defeat, but in quiet patience. Marcus stared ahead, realizing something he never expected. This was no longer just about ending a marriage. The truth was starting to surface. And once the truth entered the room, it rarely left quietly. The courtroom felt different when the session continued. The air was heavier now. Earlier, people expected a quick divorce. Now, everyone sensed that something deeper was unfolding. Even the quiet observers leaned forward slightly, waiting to see what would happen next. Marcus no longer looked relaxed. His fingers tapped nervously on the table as his lawyer whispered to him. Lena sat beside him, but her confident smile had faded. She kept checking Marcus's face, trying to understand why things suddenly felt out of control. Across the room, Danielle remained calm. She sat with her back straight, her expression peaceful, almost distant. She was not fighting. She was simply telling the truth, and somehow that made her stronger than anyone expected. The judge opened the file again. "Mr. Marcus," he said, his voice steady, "you stated earlier that the company was built through your personal investment. Marcus cleared his throat. Yes, Your Honor. The judge lifted a document. Then can you explain these early bank transfers made from Mrs. Danielle's account into the company during its first year? The question hung in the air. Marcus hesitated, just for a moment, but everyone noticed. That was temporary support, he said finally. I paid it back later. The judge did not respond immediately. Instead, he turned toward Danielle. Mrs. Danielle, would you like to explain? Danielle nodded softly. She did not look at Marcus when she spoke. At that time, the business had no income, she said calmly. We used my savings to keep it running. I believed in our future. Her voice was simple. No anger, no blame, but the truth carried weight. She explained how she worked extra shifts while Marcus built the company, how she handled early clients when he felt overwhelmed, how they both signed documents together in the beginning. The courtroom grew silent again. Some people exchanged looks. The story they thought they understood was changing. Marcus shifted in his seat. His confidence continued to slip away. He tried to interrupt once, but the judge raised his hand. Let her finish. Danielle continued quietly. She explained that she never asked for recognition. She only wanted honesty. Those words stayed in the room long after she stopped speaking. Lena's expression changed. For the first time, she looked uncertain. This was not the story Marcus had told her. She glanced at him, searching for reassurance, but Marcus avoided her eyes. The judge reviewed more documents. Old contracts showed Danielle's signature. Early business emails mentioned her decisions and planning. The foundation of the company clearly had two people behind it, not one. Marcus's lawyer leaned closer to him again, speaking in a low voice. Marcus's jaw tightened. He realized the situation was becoming dangerous. Outside the courtroom during a short break, Marcus paced the hallway. This is getting out of hand, he muttered. His lawyer spoke carefully. You should have disclosed this earlier. The judge doesn't like surprises. Marcus ran a hand through his hair. For the first time, fear replaced arrogance. He had assumed Danielle would stay quiet, just like she always had. He underestimated her. Inside the courtroom again, the judge spoke firmly. This court is not concerned with emotions, he said. Only facts. And the facts must be clear before any decision is made. His eyes rested on Marcus for a moment longer than necessary. The message was clear. This was no longer a simple divorce. It was about truth, responsibility, and fairness. Danielle sat quietly, her hands folded again. She did not look victorious. She looked relieved, as if a long-hidden story was finally being heard. Marcus stared ahead, realizing something he had not expected. The past he tried to erase was now standing in front of everyone, and it was only the beginning. The judge closed the file slowly and announced, "The court will proceed with a full review of marital assets and business ownership." A low murmur spread across the room. Lena leaned back in her chair, silent now. Marcus felt the ground shifting beneath him, because the more the truth appeared, the harder it became to hide. And soon, there would be nowhere left to hide at all. Why the next hearing? The courtroom felt completely different. What once looked like a simple divorce had now turned into something much bigger. People spoke in quiet voices before the session began. Even the lawyers moved more carefully. Everyone understood that new information was about to change everything. Marcus arrived early, but he did not look confident anymore. Dark circles sat under his eyes. His movements were tense. Lena walked beside him, but the distance between them was noticeable now. She no longer held his arm. She no longer smiled at others in the room. Across the courtroom, Danielle entered quietly and took her seat. She looked calm as always, dressed simply, her expression steady. She did not look at Marcus. She did not need to. The judge entered, and the room stood. When everyone sat down again, the judge opened a thick folder filled with new documents. His face showed no emotion, but his tone was firmer than before. After reviewing the financial records, he began, "This court has found several transfers that require explanation." Marcus swallowed hard. The judge continued, reading from the file. Large amounts of money had been moved from company accounts months before the divorce filing. Some funds were transferred into new accounts connected to business partnerships that Danielle knew nothing about. And one name appeared again and again. Lena, A quiet murmur spread through the courtroom. Marcus's lawyer quickly stood, trying to explain that the transfers were business decisions, investments, future planning. But the judge did not look convinced. These transfers began before the divorce was discussed, the judge said calmly. That raises serious concerns. Danielle listened silently. Her face showed no satisfaction, only tired understanding, as if she had suspected this long ago. The narrator returned to the past. Months before the divorce, Marcus had already planned his exit. He moved money slowly, believing Danielle would never question him. He told himself he deserved a fresh start, a new life without reminders of struggle. He forgot one thing. The past leaves records. Back in the present, the judge turned toward Marcus. Did your wife know about these transactions? Marcus hesitated. The pause lasted only seconds, but it felt much longer. No, he admitted quietly. Lena shifted uncomfortably in her seat. She avoided eye contact with everyone now. The confidence she once carried was gone. The judge leaned forward slightly. Marriage, he said, is a partnership. Financial decisions of this scale are not meant to be hidden. The words landed heavily. For the first time, Marcus looked directly at Danielle. Maybe he expected anger, maybe tears, but she only looked back calmly. That calmness unsettled him more than anything else. When Danielle finally spoke, her voice remained soft. I stayed because I believe he would remember who we were before the money, she said. I didn't want to fight. I only wanted honesty. The room fell silent again. Even the judge paused before speaking. Marcus looked down at the table. The reality he tried to avoid was now clear to everyone. This was not just a failed marriage. It was betrayal built slowly over time. During a short break, Lena stepped away from Marcus. She stood near the window, staring outside. The future she imagined suddenly felt uncertain. She realized she had only known one version of Marcus, the successful one, not the man who hid things, not the man now being questioned in court. When the session resumed, the judge's tone became final. This court will continue a full investigation into asset transfers and ownership responsibilities, he announced. Until then, no further financial changes are to be made. Marcus nodded silently. The control he once had over the situation was gone. Danielle sat quietly, breathing slowly. She was not winning. She was simply being heard for the first time in years. As the hearing ended, the judge added one last sentence that stayed in everyone's mind. Success does not erase responsibility. Marcus froze slightly when he heard it, because deep down, he understood something now. The truth was no longer hidden, and the consequences were getting closer with every hearing. The next court session felt heavier than all the others. By now, everyone knew this case was no longer just about divorce. It had become a story about truth, loyalty, and the price of forgetting the people who helped you rise. The courtroom filled early. Some people returned just to see how it would end. The tension in the air was quiet but strong. Marcus sat at the table, staring ahead. His confidence was gone. The expensive suit was still there, but it no longer carried the same power. He looked tired, as if the weight of the past had finally caught up with him. Lena arrived late and sat beside him, but she kept her distance. She no longer whispered or smiled. Her attention moved between Marcus and the judge, uncertain about what would happen next. Across the room, Danielle sat calmly, her hands resting in her lap. She looked peaceful, not because the situation was easy, but because she had stopped carrying the burden alone. The judge entered, and the room stood once again. When everyone sat, the judge called the financial expert to the stand. The expert explained in simple terms how the company had grown. Early investments, management decisions, and risk-taking moments were reviewed carefully. Documents showed how Danielle handled operations when the business had no staff. Emails revealed her role in securing early clients. Without those early decisions, the company might have failed. The words changed the atmosphere completely. Marcus shifted uncomfortably as the expert continued. Every sentence seemed to remove another piece of the story he had built around himself. The judge looked at Marcus. Do you disagree with these findings? Marcus opened his mouth, then closed it again. There was nothing left to argue. Danielle did not look at him. She simply listened. When she was asked to speak, her voice remained calm. "I never wanted a success," she said quietly. "I only wanted respect." The simplicity of her words made them powerful. "No revenge. No anger. Just honesty." For a moment, even Marcus looked ashamed. During a short recess, Marcus approached Danielle in the hallway. His voice was lower now, uncertain. "We can settle this privately," he said. "We don't need to keep doing this." Danielle looked at him calmly. There was sadness in her eyes, but no hesitation. "I asked for honesty before," she replied softly. "Now I want the truth to stay on record." Marcus had no answer. For the first time, he realized this was not about money anymore. It was about accountability. Back inside the courtroom, the judge reviewed the final reports. The evidence was clear. Financial transfers, hidden accounts, and ownership history painted a complete picture. Lena sat silently, her expression distant. The future she imagined with Marcus no longer looked secure. She began to understand that success built on broken trust rarely lasts. The judge finally spoke again. "This court recognizes the contributions made during the formation and growth of this business," he said firmly. "Those contributions cannot be ignored." Marcus's hands tightened together. He understood what was coming, even before the final decision. Danielle remained still, breathing slowly. She was not celebrating. She only looked relieved that her voice had finally been heard. The judge closed the file, but did not announce the ruling yet. "The final decision will be delivered in the next session," he said. A quiet murmur spread across the courtroom. The waiting suddenly felt heavier than the arguments. As people began leaving, Marcus stayed seated for a moment longer. The room that once felt like a place of victory now felt unfamiliar. He looked toward Danielle as she walked toward the exit. She did not look back, and in that moment, Marcus understood something painful. The turning point had already passed. The outcome was no longer in his control, and soon, the consequences of his choices would become impossible to avoid. The final hearing day arrived quietly. There was no loud conversation in the courtroom this time. People spoke softly, as if they already knew something serious was about to happen. The long weeks of arguments, documents, and truth had brought everyone to this moment. Marcus sat at the table, staring at his hands. He looked different now. The confidence that once filled the room around him was gone. In its place was tension and regret he could no longer hide. Lena sat beside him, but the distance between them felt larger than ever. She no longer looked proud or excited. Instead, she seemed uncomfortable, almost ready to leave at any moment. Across the room, Danielle sat calmly. Her posture was straight, her expression peaceful. She was not smiling. She was not nervous. She simply looked ready for the chapter to end. When the judge entered, the entire room stood in silence. Everyone sat again, waiting. The judge opened the file slowly. The sound of paper turning echoed through the quiet courtroom. He looked at Marcus first, then at Danielle. "This case," the judge began, "is not only about divorce. It is about fairness, honesty, and responsibility." The words settled heavily in the air. He explained that the court had reviewed all financial records, early investments, and ownership history. The evidence clearly showed that Danielle played a major role in building the company from the beginning. Her financial support and management efforts were essential to its success. Marcus closed his eyes briefly. He already understood what was coming. The judge continued, his voice calm but firm. Attempts were made to move assets without full disclosure. This court does not take such actions lightly. A quiet murmur moved through the room. Then came the decision. Danielle was awarded a significant share of the business and marital assets. The court ordered financial corrections for the transfers that had been hidden. Marcus would no longer have full control over the company he once believed was entirely his. The words were clear. Final. Marcus sat frozen. The outcome he feared had become reality. The life he tried to protect by pushing Danielle away was now changed forever. Beside him, Lena slowly pulled her hand away from the table. She stared forward, silent. The future she imagined, luxury, comfort, easy success, disappeared in that moment. She realized she had stepped into a story that was already breaking apart. Danielle listened quietly. She did not react with excitement or victory. Instead, she took a slow breath, as if releasing years of weight from her shoulders. Justice, when it came, felt calm. Not loud, not dramatic, just fair. The judge spoke once more before closing the case. Success should never come at the cost of respect, he said. And partnership should never be forgotten when success arrives. Marcus lowered his head. For the first time, there was no argument left to make. The hearing ended. People slowly began leaving the courtroom, whispering about what they had witnessed. Some looked at Danielle with quiet admiration. Others shook their heads at Marcus, wondering how someone could lose so much by forgetting where they started. Outside the courthouse, sunlight filled the steps. Danielle walked forward without stopping. She did not look back. She did not need closure from Marcus anymore. The truth had already given her that. Behind her, Marcus stepped outside a few minutes later. He looked around, searching for Lena, but she was already walking away toward the parking lot. She did not turn around. For the first time, Marcus stood completely alone. The consequences were not only financial. They were personal. He finally understood that success without loyalty felt empty. And as he watched Danielle disappear into the distance, one painful realization settled in his mind. The judge did not take his future away. His own choices did. And the regret had only just begun. Months passed after the final court decision. Life moved forward, but not in the way Marcus once imagined. The company still existed, but things felt different. Meetings were quieter. Problems appeared more often. Decisions that once seemed easy now became difficult. Marcus slowly realized how much Danielle had handled behind the scenes. The small details he never noticed were now missing. Employees left. Clients comprendre. The business that once grew quickly now struggled to stay steady. Success felt heavier when he carried it alone. Meanwhile, Danielle's life changed in a quieter way. She moved into a smaller home, not far from the city, choosing peace over luxury. For the first time in years, her days felt calm. She woke up without stress, without arguments, without feeling invisible. She began working again, this time on her own terms. She helped small business owners who reminded her of who she once was, people with ideas but no support. Slowly, she built something new, something that belonged only to her. People respected her not because of Marcus's company, but because of her strength and honesty. She never spoke badly about Marcus. When people asked, she simply said, "Some lessons take time." Back across town, Marcus sat alone in his office one evening, staring at old photos on his phone. Pictures from years ago, small apartments, late-night dinners, smiles that looked real. Danielle was in all of them. He realized something painful then. During his rise, he had focused so much on becoming successful that he forgot the person who helped him survive failure. Money had made him feel powerful, but power without gratitude had slowly destroyed everything. Lena was gone now. She left weeks after the court decision. The excitement disappeared once the future stopped looking easy. Marcus could not blame her. He understood now that relationships built on convenience rarely last. The silence in his life became louder every day. One afternoon, Marcus saw Danielle by chance at a cafe. She was laughing with a group of people, relaxed and confident. She looked lighter, free in a way he had not seen for years. For a moment, he thought about walking over, apologizing, explaining, but he stayed where he was. He understood that some apologies arrived too late. Danielle noticed him briefly. Their eyes met for only a second. She gave a small, polite nod, not cold, not angry, just distant, like someone acknowledging a chapter that had already ended. Then she turned back to her conversation, and Marcus understood the truth. She had moved on. The narrator's voice softened as the story reached its end. Regret does not always come with loud consequences. Sometimes it arrives quietly, in empty rooms and unanswered calls. Sometimes it comes when a person finally understands the value of what they lost. Danielle did not win because Marcus lost. She won because she chose dignity over revenge, truth over anger, and peace over bitterness. Marcus remained successful in the eyes of the world, but inside, he carried a lesson that would never leave him. Respect cannot be replaced. Loyalty cannot be rewritten. And the people who stand beside us during our hardest days are often the ones we miss the most when they are gone. The judge's decision closed the case. But Marcus's choices wrote the ending. And the real regret was not losing money or control. The real regret was realizing too late that the person he replaced was the one who made everything possible.